Hey guys, welcome back to 3D Japan. LightWave 3D is really starting to gain momentum again, so I thought now would be a good time to make some introduction videos for all the new users. If you don't know me, I'm Phil Nolan. I've been using LightWave 3D professionally for over 23 years from my work in TV, film, and other advertising, as well as my 3D printing projects and more. So let's start with a look at the basics of the LightWave interface and how it works in general. I'd also like to thank LightWave Digital for upgrading my license to the latest version so that I can show you some of the newest features later on. Okay, so here's the main modeler interface. If you weren't aware, LightWave is actually two main programs. Modeler here and Layout here, where you do all your animation, visual effects, all that sort of thing. Let's go back to Modeler, and we'll focus on Modeler for the moment, because that's really where you're going to be starting. You can't animate if you don't have any models. So, main thing is, okay, if you're a regular on the channel, you may notice this is the logo that I'm always pointing at the very beginning of each video. The main thing to look at first is across the top here, we have all these tabs. And each one of these tabs is for the different tools along the side. So, of course, here we have the Create tab, where you can create things like primitive objects, like a box or a ball or a disc or cone, text, individual points, individual polygons, and curves. There we have the Modify tab, and you'll see these change. So we have Translate, Rotate, Transform tools. Multiply tab for extending polygons, duplicating objects and polygons, subdividing them. In the Detail tab, we have tools for points, edges, polygons, etc., curves, parts. We have the Construct tab for reducing. So if you have a really dense model, you can use some of these tools to make it a more low poly. Combining for merging things together. Patches, converting. Maps, this is for things like UV maps, if you're going to be adding image-based textures. We have a whole tab just for UVs. Setup, this is for things that you're going to be doing later in layout, such as setting up skelegons, which are like bones for a character. Selection tab, which has all kinds of different tools just for making selections. And that actually brings me to this section up at the top here. This up here never changes no matter what tab you're on. And we have a new one in this current version of LightWave that is just for selections. And that's really handy, because I used to get so tired of having to come up to this selections tab every time. So now we have this drop-down menu for selections that is always available. So anyway, going on to layers. Now in LightWave, we have these layer panels at the very top right here. And these are the different layers for your model. And you can click at the top. That'll be your main model you're working on. And you can also click in the bottom section, and that will put it in the background. So you can see it, but you can't actually affect anything on it, which is great. It's good to use as reference. And there's all kinds of things over here you can do with layers. View, this is just for what you're looking at in the viewports. I/O, input output for saving different files or loading different files, importing and exporting. LW Pro Tools, this is again something new here, which I haven't even really looked into yet. There's a whole lot of new tools here in this latest version of LightWave. And LW Workspaces, again, this is something brand new to this version, which I haven't looked into that much yet. I'm only guessing it's different workspaces. Like right now, we have a quad view with 4 different viewports. I'm guessing you can adjust it so that maybe you'll have 2 viewports on one side and a big one on the right. And then you can save that as a workspace, so you can just click it and easily jump to it. So again, with these viewports, let's look at the last one here is utilities. These are just simple stuff like plugins, L-scripts, which is LightWave's own little coding language. Yeah, different commands, stuff like that. So anyway, back to the viewports here. At the top here, we have this will show which viewport you're looking at, or which view in the viewport you're looking at. So right now it's at the top. This will be the back, right, etc. We also have perspective, which is the same as the upper right one here. And you can rotate in that one. But I like to keep this set back at the top, which is the default. Then over here we have the views, like how it looks inside the viewport. So this is currently wireframe. You have color wireframe, so you can change the colors. I find this useful to use sometimes. It's a little easier to see. Hidden line. So this is just like wireframe, except it hides the wires in the background. That can make it easier to see sometimes. Sketch view, it's just like that. Let's look at it over here so we can rotate it. Sketch view, so it just makes it a solid color. Wireframe shade is just the has the colors, but it also has wireframe. Flat shade is just the colors with no wires, but there's no any kind of lighting or anything on it. Smooth shade, the same thing, except if you have any kind of smoothing applied, it will show the nice smooth surfaces. Weight shade, that's something we can really get into later, but you can apply weight maps, and this will show where the weight maps are applied. Then texture, so if you have any special textures applied, like image-based textures, they will appear in here. And then textured wire. So that's the same thing, but with wires. So what I normally do is I normally use textured wire or texture and wireframe or color wireframe, like all the time. Usually my perspective viewport here is textured or textured wire. And then I keep the other 3 at wireframe. So there are a few windows that are really helpful to always have open. So one is the numeric panel. If we press the N key, you can see that pops up. This is where any kind of controls will be if you have a tool selected. So let's say we'll go back here to create, and we'll create a ball. And it's not active right now, but if I start creating a ball, you'll see the options come in here. And we can set the number of sides, number of segments, and the height. So let's go back to textured wire here. And we can drag on little mini slider here to adjust the height of it. And we've got the radius, so I can stretch it out, make it more of a ball. And so that's basically what this window is for. The cool thing about LightWave, anywhere in LightWave, with these uh, little text boxes here, any text box can do math. So you can see right now we have the radius is 396 millimeters for the y-axis. So if I say 396 millimeters plus 100 and press enter, now it's, oh, I forgot to say millimeters. So now it's plus meters is the default. So let's undo that. Press Control Z. And we'll go back to our box, or our ball tool. And I can just drag in the viewport, and then I can drag from the side view to bring it up. And so here we have 450 millimeters. So I can say space plus 100 mm for millimeters and enter. And now it's just a little bit bigger. So you can do any kind of math in here, plus, minus, the asterisk for multiplication, and the forward slash for division. So that is really handy. Okay, so we'll press enter to save our sphere here. Oh, because I had a cursor in the text box. Enter just confirmed that selection or that choice. Press enter again, and it's confirmed. So let's talk about making selections. Do it over in the top viewport here. So if you use your right mouse button, you can draw a lasso, and you can lasso some. Currently, points is selected, so when I let go, we get a bunch of points selected. Now, if I go over them again, they get deselected. Another option for deselecting is to just double click in an empty space, and it'll deselect everything. Another way you can deselect everything is the / key. And I personally have that set to a button on my mouse so that without even touching the keyboard, I can just just press that button and it'll deselect everything. Because there are lots of times when I need to deselect all, and that just makes it a lot easier. So suppose you don't want to select points. You press the space bar, it'll go to edges. If I press spacebar again, it'll go to polygon selection, and spacebar again goes back to point selection. So you can just toggle those just by hitting spacebar. So we looked at the numeric window. Another really useful window to have open all the time, for me anyway, is press W and you'll get the statistics panel. Now this will show you all kinds of statistics for the current selection type. So let me switch over to polygon selection. And you can see right now 4 vertices is highlighted. That means polygons that have 4 vertices on them. And I can press the plus button to select all the polygons that have 4 vertices, or the minus button to deselect those polys. This is really handy if you have a lot of triangles and you want to select them all. Press that. Now we have all of our triangles selected. So the third window that's really useful to have open all the time, we get with F7, and that is our layers panel. Now I briefly showed you up here we have layers, but I find this panel makes things a lot easier. So let's take our sphere and say I'll just take part of our sphere. Now I'm going to cut it, Control X, and I can go to another layer on this panel and place the previous stuff in the background. And now I can Control V. And so now I've got the stuff that I moved over here in the foreground and the rest of it in the background. And I can press the apostrophe key to switch between them. Now, how I normally have this set up is that I'll drag the window over a little bit. And I'll place these all on that side. It's big enough so I can see them. And I'll usually make the numeric panel a little bit longer because there tends to be tools that show up all the way down the bottom. And so if you close LightWave and reopen it, these will stay right where they were. So I just set them up like that and they stay that way all the time. Okay, a few last things to talk about with the interface. Down at the bottom here, we can see our different selection types. There's one more that you can't access with the space bar. That's volume. I almost never use this one. You can just use your right mouse button to. You can use the right mouse button to drag and select an area, or the left mouse button to select a square or a rectangle, I should say. And then anything that you do will affect inside that area. So if I hit T for move, then it'll just move points that are inside that area. Let's undo. And then you also cannot get out of this with spacebar. You have to manually click one of the other types down here. So then next over, we have the action centers. This is a really big deal because let's select this sphere I was working on. So the first one you have is mouse. So what it does is it will change any tools you use will be affected based on what you have selected here. That may not make any sense, but here, let's pick move or translate. Or let's hit rotate. That's easier. And so if I rotate from here with mouse selected, it'll rotate around the mouse position, like so. And so if I do it all the way over here, it'll rotate from around there. Now, if I use selection, it doesn't matter where my mouse is, it'll rotate around its center of its mass. Next up is pivot point, which you can set the pivot point, but by default it's at 0. So it's currently at 0, 0, 0. So it'll do the same thing basically. Undo. Next one is origin, which is 0, 0, 0. So again, that'll do the same thing. Let's temporarily move it over here. So if I rotate now, regardless of where the mouse is, it'll rotate around the center. And then there's also local, which I believe is also kind of the same thing as selection or pivot. Well, kind of the same thing as selection, I should say. Then we have symmetry. You can turn symmetry on and off with this button. Then subpatch or Catmull Clark. So let me look at it from this angle. So if we hit tab, it'll switch it to subpatch mode, which is like soft curves. It's for organic objects. There are two different types of subpatch. There's regular and Catmull Clark. I generally prefer to use the regular one. I'll hit tab again and go back to regular polygons. Okay. Next up is the numeric window, which we already have open. Set surface, that is, I already mentioned the Q key, so we can apply a surface. Next is drop tool, which just use spacebar for that. Drop the selection, which I've mentioned before, and then undo and redo. So also at the top of each bar, I mentioned these two drop-down boxes here, but on the far right side of each viewport, we have buttons which you can click and drag for panning if it's in the 2D viewport, zooming, and then to blow it up to full screen, like so, which really helps if you really want to see a lot more of that. And you can zoom in and really have it fill your whole screen. If you want to also get in and out of that full screen, you can hit 0 on your keypad, which is what I normally do. So, yeah, hitting 0 on there is very helpful. In the perspective viewport, you also have a rotate button, which you can click and drag around to rotate. Okay, so I've made a list of some common shortcut keys that are really handy to have. And when I was in school for LightWave, we only had one test for my entire class, and it was on shortcut keys. So these are really important to learn to make things a lot faster and easier to work. So the first one I already mentioned was the spacebar to change your selection type. Next one is T for move or translate. So I hit T, and then I can drag and move my selection around. And I'll press spacebar to drop the tool and deselect. Y is rotate. So it'll always rotate in like screen space from like the camera angle you're looking at. So if I'm looking at it from the front and back, it'll rotate along that axis. From the top, it'll rotate along that axis, etc. Spacebar to drop the tool. Okay, so I've got a selection here. If I want to expand that selection, I can press Shift and the right square bracket, and it'll expand it out. Shift and the left square bracket will shrink it. I already mentioned apostrophe will flip the foreground and background. So I have a background here, press that, and it'll switch between the two. Let's make a selection. Shift and the apostrophe will flip the selection. So right now, almost everything is selected. I hit Shift and apostrophe, and it switches them. Okay, so let me use the mouse wheel to zoom in a little bit, and I'll select a few of these and delete them. Okay, so if I want to make a polygon, I can make a point selection in clockwise order. around that area, and then hit P to make polygon. And we can't see it right now in the wireframe view, but here we go. Now we have that one polygon there, and it's automatically selected when you make it. Next one is R for rotate 90 degrees. So if I'm in this viewport, I don't have to click anything, but if I press R, it'll rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Let's undo. Okay, another important one is Q, and that is to create a new surface, which is like a material in some other programs. So we'll call it a name, we'll call it square. And you have some simple controls here, like the color. You can click the little swatch here to adjust the color. We'll make it bright blue. Okay. We can adjust the specularity and the roughness in here. Turn on smoothing if need be. And we'll click OK. And then if we come up to the surface editor, we can see we now have the different surfaces here, the chrome and the red from the logo that I had up there, or the default, which is this gray. And we have our new square surface where we can change all kinds of surface settings, and that's a whole nother topic to get into. Okay, next one is to hide the selection. So I've got a whole bunch of polygons here, and I want to hide them so that I can see through them and they're not in the way. I can just press the minus key, and I can press the backslash to get them back. Now, if I press equals, I can hide everything except for the selection. Now, something that's a somewhat new feature in LightWave from the past couple versions is if we press Alt-T, we get a gizmo, and we can use that gizmo for moving, scaling, and rotating. So here we go, I'm rotating it, and click the arrow to move, and then either the middle or the rectangles on the arrow line to scale it. So if I click the middle, it'll scale everything uniformly. And press enter to get out of that, or space, yes. So that is all of the common shortcuts that I could think of. Okay, next let's look at some of the custom shortcuts that I use myself. And for that, we need to go into the keyboard shortcut editor. It'll be under Edit at the top left here, Keyboard Shortcuts. And so this may look a little confusing at first, but there is a search box up here where you can search for any command in the entire program. And on the right side, we have the keys. So the first ones that I do, now you may be used to using Control X, Control C, Control V for cut, copy, paste. In the original version of LightWave, when I learned it, it was using the old Amiga shortcuts of just XCV. There was no control key. So that's the way I have it set up, because I don't see any point in using control key when it's easier to just press X, C, or V. So if I want to look up cut, I'll just type in cut, and under here we have edit and cut. So that shows you where it is in the list here. And then on the key side, I'll press find, and it shows me that cut is currently assigned to Control X. So I'm going to unassign that, and then I will find the just C. So we'll scroll down. I come across just regular letters. Pass them? Yes. Here's C is currently set to clone. I don't really use clone, so I'm going to unassign that. And cut is selected on the left, so I will hit assign. And so now C is cut, which actually I wanted that to be cut to be X. So let's unassign that. We'll go down to X. And nothing is currently on X, so we'll just hit assign. Okay, now copy. And I can see here, edit, copy. Now I'll go up to C. And we'll assign that. And then paste V. I have it set as paste. Paste. And it is edit, paste. Find is actually Alt V. That's weird. Let's unassign that. And we'll go back up to the letters. And I will set that as V, which is currently set value. I normally have that as Control V. Let's unassign that. And we'll assign paste. Now that I changed that, I can find set value. Go. We'll find it. And I will set it to Control V. Control V is currently paste new. I don't know. We don't even know what that is. Let's unassign it and assign set value to it. Okay, next one that I personally set up is select loop, which is easier now that they have this select menu I was mentioning, but I normally set it to the L key. Okay, select loop and find, and it's currently on the right arrow, which doesn't make much sense to me. So let's unassign it, and I'll come back up to the letters right here. The L key here is currently connect, which is something I don't really use. So let's unassign it, and we'll assign select loop. Now the next one is, again, you may be used to using Control Z to undo. I use the old LightWave keyboard shortcut of U for undo. That makes sense to me. And then Shift U for redo. So let's set undo. Find. Currently Control Z. I'm going to unassign that. And I will come up here to find U. Right there. That's something I don't use. Unassign it and assign undo to it. So I'm not going to show you the rest. I'll just tell you U for undo, Shift U for redo. I showed you how to use R to rotate 90 degrees. I use Shift R to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise in the other direction. Another one is the bridge tool, which I'll show you in a second. I use Control B for that. Let's assign that real quick and I'll show you. Okay, bridge, find it. It's not even assigned to anything. So I'll find Control B, have what I set it to. It's chamfer. I don't really need that. Unassign, and we'll assign bridge. And then when you're all done with these, just click done. It'll close the window. Now, as far as bridge, let's select a few more of these polygons. With the middle mouse button, you can select more. And let's delete those for now. Now I'm going to switch over to edge selection and just select 2 or 4 that are across from each other even. And then I'll press Control B for bridge, and it just makes polygons going across between those edges. Something I find really handy, and I use it all the time. That's why I set a keyboard shortcut to it. Okay, so that's it. That is all of my custom shortcuts. And that is, I think, everything for the basics of Modeler. In the next video, I will start looking at layout, where we do all our animation and rendering and cameras and all of that. So if you liked this little introduction, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe so you can get the next one on layout. I'll see you next time.